What if I told you that Ferrari could arrive in Miami with a system that, without being illegal, could force the FIA to change the rules in the middle of the season? Because this is not just a technical innovation. It is a play to the limit that is reminiscent of the biggest controversies of modern Formula One. A concept that takes advantage of a gray area in the regulations to do something that, in essence, was already prohibited in the past, but now returns disguised as legality. The question is simple, but brutal. Are we facing Ferrari's biggest technical coup in years? Or a scandal that could explode at any moment? Because if this system works as they hope, Miami won't be just another race, it will be the breaking point of the entire season. Ferrari did not get to this point by chance. What we are seeing in 2026 is the direct consequence of years of frustration, of staying on the edge, of understanding that to once again dominate Formula One it was not enough to improve. The rules had to be reinterpreted from their roots. And that is where this concept was born that today has the entire grid on alert. To understand why this system is so dangerous, you have to go further back. Because Ferrari came from a process where, despite showing flashes of competitiveness, there was always a limit that they could not break. Even in moments where they seemed to be close, strategic errors, the inconsistency of the car or questionable technical decisions ended up taking them away from the real objective, which was to dominate in a sustained manner. But something changed. The arrival of the new 2026 regulations was not seen by Ferrari as a simple transition. It was seen as an opportunity to completely reinvent itself. While other teams were thinking about adapting, Ferrari decided to get ahead. They did not seek to optimize what existed. They sought to create something that others were not even contemplating. And here comes the true origin of the FTM. It is not an isolated piece designed in recent months. It is the result of a philosophy where the car is built around the flow of energy, not only aerodynamic but also thermal. Ferrari understood that with the elimination of the MGUH, the behavior of the turbo and exhaust gases was going to change radically, and where others saw a limitation, they saw an opportunity. Because without that hybrid system, controlling the flow of gases becomes much more complex, but also much freer. And that's where Ferrari took the first key step, designing an engine that not only delivers power, but maintains a constant flow of gases in situations where it would normally be lost. This involves working the car in specific rev ranges, keeping the engine alive even in phases of low demand, and turning something that was previously secondary into the center of the entire aerodynamic strategy. The next thing was even more radical. If the gases could be controlled, they could be used. And this is where the design of the car starts to take a completely different direction than the rest. Ferrari didn't design the aerodynamics first and then adapt the engine. It did exactly the opposite. It built a direct interaction between both worlds, creating a total dependency between engine behavior and aerodynamic performance. You can't copy this in a mid-season update. This requires redesigning the car from scratch. That's why Ferrari moved key internal elements such as the differential to a more rearward position. Not on a whim, but to free up the exact space where to place that small flap that today is at the center of all the controversy. That detail, which seems minimal, is actually the piece that connects the entire system. And this is where the real concern in the paddock begins. Because while other teams continue to develop their cars within a traditional logic, Ferrari is playing a different game. One where the exhaust is no longer the end of the system, but rather an active performance-generating tool. This is inevitably reminiscent of one of the most controversial eras of Formula One, the era of blown exhaust. A solution that was so effective that it ended up being banned because it completely distorted the aerodynamics of the cars. Teams like Red Bull dominated thanks to that technology, until the FIA decided to close the door. And now, Ferrari has found a way to bring that idea back, without breaking the regulations. That is the key to everything. They are not doing something illegal. They are doing something that the regulations did not foresee. And that is much more dangerous. Because when a team finds an interpretation like that, there are usually two paths. Either the rest manages to copy it quickly, or the FIA intervenes. But in this case, copying it is not viable in the short term. The complexity of the system, its total integration into the car's design, and reliance on the engine give Ferrari, at least for now, a unique potential advantage. And all this points to a key moment: Miami. A race that, on the calendar, could seem like just another one, but that in reality can become the turning point of the entire season. Because it will be the first real scenario where we will see if this concept works under pressure, in race conditions, against all its rivals. And if it works, we are not talking about an improvement. We are talking about a paradigm shift. Because at that moment, the question will no longer be whether Ferrari did something brilliant, and it will become whether someone can stop them. Because when a team begins to move in that gray area of the regulations, what comes next is never calm. Pressure comes, doubts come, and above all, reactions come. And this is where we enter the real conflict. Because while Ferrari prepares its debut in Miami with this system, there are already teams in the paddock that are not watching. They are investigating. They are not waiting to see results. They are looking for a way to stop it before it even takes hold. And this completely changes the scenario. The history of Formula One has taught us something very clear. When a technical solution has the potential for dominance, it does not take long for it to become a political problem. And Ferrari right now is right at that point, because FTM not only represents a potential advantage, it represents a direct threat to competitive balance. And that is something that teams like Red Bull, Mercedes, or even McLaren are not going to allow without a fight. Not because it's illegal, but because they know what it can mean if it works. A system like this doesn't just give you performance, it gives you control. And control in Formula One is everything. This is where the most dangerous game begins, the off-piste game. Because there is a question that is already circulating among engineers and technical directors. Does this really comply with the spirit of the regulation? And that phrase is the most important of all. Because it's not just about what is written, but about what is interpreted. Ferrari has worked within the limits, yes, but it has taken that interpretation to a point where the FIA could be forced to intervene. And when that happens, it no longer depends on performance. It depends on political decisions. And that opens up two completely different scenarios. The first, the Ferrari stage. The system works, they show a real advantage in Miami, and for several races no one can catch them. In that case, Ferrari not only gains time, it gains a structural advantage that can mark the entire season. Because as we already understood, this is not copyable in weeks. It is a complete design concept. But there is a second scenario, much more explosive. Let the FIA act. And if it does, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen something like this. Changes to technical directives, urgent clarifications, reinterpretations of the regulations. All of this is part of the DNA of modern Formula One. And when it happens, it's usually because someone has gone too far or too well. And Ferrari is dangerously close to both. Because the problem with this system is not just what it does, it's how it does it. It is using exhaust gases as an active aerodynamic tool, something that in the past was eliminated precisely because it gave advantages that were difficult to control. And even though it is now within a legal zone, the philosophy behind it is the same. That's what's uncomfortable. That's what creates pressure. And that is what can trigger a formal protest at any time. But here comes the most interesting twist in all of this. Ferrari already knew this could happen. And yet they did it. That means they don't just believe in the performance of the system. They believe they can defend it. That their interpretation of the regulation is solid enough to withstand any revision. And that tells us something very important. It is not a desperate bet. It is a calculated move. Cold, precise, and extremely ambitious. Because if they manage to keep this system active for several races, the impact will not only be technical, it will be psychological. The rest of the teams will not only have to catch up, they will have to completely rethink their approach. And that's where a season breaks. Because when a team forces others to react, they are already one step ahead. And all this brings us to the key moment that is approaching. Miami will not just be the debut of an update. It will be the public trial of an idea that can change Formula One. Because as soon as that car hits the track, there will be no more theories, no simulations, no speculation. There will only be one truth. Or Ferrari has just revolutionized the sport, or it has just opened the door to the biggest technical conflict of the season. And then we reach the point where everything is defined, where theory becomes reality, and where Ferrari can no longer hide anything. Miami. The exact moment when this system stops being a promise and becomes a real threat. Because simulations, internal data, and team expectations no longer matter here. As soon as that car hits the track, the entire paddock will be looking at one thing. If that flow of gases, if that small flap, if that complete concept really generates the advantage that Ferrari believes it has. And if you do, this is over. Not in the literal sense, but in the competitive sense. Because if Ferrari proves in Miami that the FTM works as designed, the rest of the field automatically goes into chase mode. There will be no room for immediate reaction. There will be no quick solutions. And most importantly, there will be no way to match it in the short term. That means Ferrari could have a window of dominance, an advantage built not on tense, but on concept. And in Formula One, when a concept is superior, everything changes. But this is where the most unpredictable factor of all comes in, the FIA. Because the moment that system shows its true potential, the pressure will be unsustainable. The teams are not going to sit idly by and watch Ferrari exploit a gray area in the regulations. They are going to question it, they are going to put pressure, they are going to look for any technical argument to stop it. And that's where everything is decided. Not on the track, but in the offices. Because if the FIA considers that although legal, this system breaks the spirit of the regulations, it can intervene. And if it intervenes, Ferrari doesn't just lose an advantage, it loses the core of its design. Because this system is not removable without consequences. It is integrated throughout the car. That would be a devastating blow. But if the FIA decides not to act, then we are facing something much bigger, or we are seeing the birth of a revolution. Or the beginning of one of the biggest technical scandals in modern Formula One. And in the end, it all boils down to a single idea. Ferrari has not come to compete, it has come to change the rules of the game without breaking them. Because what we are seeing with this system is not another improvement within the natural development of Formula One. It is a declaration of intent. It's Ferrari saying that in an era where everything seems controlled, there is still room to find advantages where no one else is looking. FTM is not just a technical component, it is a philosophy. A different way of understanding the car, where the engine stops being just a source of power and becomes an active aerodynamic tool. And that, if confirmed on the track, could mark a before and after in this new regulation. But it is also a dangerous bet. Because when you move at the limit of the regulations, you not only depend on your performance, you depend on what others are willing to tolerate. And in an environment like Formula One, where every advantage is questioned, analyzed and attacked, that can turn against you at any moment, Miami will be the first verdict. The point where we will know if Ferrari struck gold, or if he simply dug too deep into a forbidden zone without realizing it. Because as soon as that car demonstrates its true potential, the silence of the paddock will be broken. And what is admiration today can quickly turn into pressure. And that is where everything will be decided. Not only if Ferrari can win, but if Formula One is prepared to accept what Ferrari has created. Because if you allow it, we won't be watching just one more season. We will be seeing the beginning of a new era. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.